In the heart of every parent lies a dream, a home built not with bricks and mortar, but with laughter, trust, and love. We dream of a sanctuary, a garden where our children can grow, pure and untouched by the harshness of the world. But what happens when that dream becomes a nightmare? What happens when the very people meant to protect their children become the ones who wound them most? This is a story that will make you question everything you thought you knew about family, about love, about the invisible scars we leave on those we cherish most. This is the story of Anthony and Ellie, a family with a beautiful home and a gate left wide open. Before we continue, I must warn you, what you are about to hear is uncomfortable, painful, and devastatingly real. It is a mirror held up to the face of every parent who has ever chosen work over presence, silence over honesty, secrets over truth. If you are ready to face that mirror, then listen closely, because this story might just save your family. Anthony was a good man. Well, so he told himself. He woke every morning at 5, dressed in the dark so as not to wake his wife, and drove through empty streets to his office. He worked in finance, managing accounts for wealthy clients who never learned his name. The work was demanding, endless, a river that never stopped flowing. But he did it for them, he told himself. For Ellie, for James, for Lily, for the house with the red door and the garden where his children played. He told himself this every day, like a prayer, like a shield against the growing emptiness he felt inside. But here is the question that haunts every parent. When does providing become neglecting? When does sacrifice become abandonment? Anthony was about to learn the answer, and it would destroy him. Ellie had been beautiful once, or perhaps she still was, but Anthony could no longer see it. She had been a teacher before James was born, passionate about literature and poetry, her eyes alive with stories. But motherhood had changed her, or perhaps it was marriage that had done it. The stories dried up. The light in her eyes dimmed. She spent her days cooking, cleaning, managing the chaos of 2 small children, and by the time Anthony came home each night, she was too tired to speak, too worn to dream. They had become strangers, sharing a bed, 2 actors in a play neither of them remembered auditioning for. And when strangers live together long enough, they begin to seek comfort in the arms of others. On the surface, all was well. Anthony provided for his family, and Ellie cared for the home. But silence had built walls between them, and in that silence, secrets took root. Secrets that would soon be discovered by the 2 people who should never have known them: their children. It began on a Tuesday. Ellie had taken the children to the park, and there she met David. He was a father too, pushing his daughter on the swings, and when their eyes met, something shifted. He smiled at her, a real smile, the kind that reached his eyes, and she realized she could not remember the last time Anthony had looked at her that way. What started as innocent conversations became something far more dangerous. Those conversations became regular meetings, and those meetings became coffee dates, and those coffee dates became something darker, something neither of them could name, but both of them craved. Ellie told herself it was harmless. She told herself she deserved this small happiness, this brief escape. But deep down, she knew the truth. She was betraying her husband, her children, herself. And betrayal, once planted, grows like poison ivy, spreading until it chokes everything in its path. One evening, after the children had been put to bed, the tension between Anthony and Ellie finally erupted. They stood in the kitchen, their voices low and harsh, trying not to wake James and Lily. "Is it not for you and this family I work day and night?" he said. His face was tight with exhaustion and frustration, his hands clenched at his sides. "We have a house, Anthony, but we do not have a home. You are a ghost here," she said, her voice trembling with years of unspoken pain, tears streaming down her face. "You leave before dawn and return after dark. When was the last time you played with your children? When was the last time you looked at me, really looked at me, and saw a woman and not just a housekeeper?" Anthony wanted to respond, but the words caught in his throat. He knew she was right, but he did not know how to fix it. So he did what he always did. He turned away, walked to his study, and closed the door. Ellie stood alone in the kitchen, her heart breaking, and she sent a message to David. "Come over tonight," she wrote. "Anthony will be asleep." But someone else was awake. Someone small, innocent, and watching. What neither of them knew was that James, their 8-year-old son, was not asleep. He had crept out of his room to get a glass of water, and from the hallway, he heard everything. Pause with gravity. He heard his father's anger and his mother's pain. He heard words he did not fully understand, but felt in his bones. And later, much later, when the house was dark and silent, he saw something that would change him forever. Whisper. Something no child should ever see. He saw the front door open quietly. He saw a man's shadow in the doorway, tall and unfamiliar. He saw his mother standing there, her face streaked with tears and guilt, leaning against the door after the man left. Pause. James did not understand what he had seen, but he knew it was wrong. He knew it was a secret. Breathe deeply. And secrets, even ones we do not fully understand, have a way of poisoning everything they touch. Pause, voice heavy with sorrow. This is where the story takes its darkest turn. This is where innocence dies. A child may not understand the words of adults, but they are experts in the language of emotion. James saw a secret he was not meant to see. He had learned a lesson he was not meant to learn. Pause. And that lesson would soon manifest in ways his parents could never have imagined. In the days that followed, James changed. He became quiet, withdrawn, his bright eyes dimmed with confusion and sadness. Lily, his younger sister, noticed the change in her brother and tried to cheer him up, but nothing worked. James carried the weight of what he had seen like a stone in his chest. He stopped playing with his toys. He stopped laughing at cartoons. He watched his parents with eyes that saw too much, knew too much. And in his young mind, he began to believe that this was what love looked like. Arguments, secrets, sadness, lies. The next week, Anthony and Ellie announced that they needed to attend a family emergency together. It was a lie, of course, another lie in a house built on lies. Anthony had a client meeting he could not miss, and Ellie had promised David one more afternoon together. They told themselves it would be fine, that James was responsible enough to watch Lily for a few hours. "We won't be long. Just play in your room. Do you understand?" she said. Pause. Ellie knelt down to look James in the eyes, but he would not meet her gaze. He simply nodded, his face expressionless, and Ellie felt a flicker of unease.
but she pushed it aside, grabbed her purse, and followed Anthony out the door. The greatest mistake a parent can make is to believe their children are blind to their lies. They left their children alone, not in an empty house, but in a house full of secrets. And those secrets were about to come to light in the most devastating way. James and Lily sat in their room after their parents left. For a while they played quietly with their toys, but then Lily looked at her brother and said, "Why are Mommy and Daddy always sad?" James did not answer. Instead, he stood up and walked to the window, staring out on the empty street. "Do you want to play a game?" he said finally. "What game?" Lily asked, her 6-year-old